Okay. We're still in is this Brookings? Brookings, South Dakota, and Dan Blocker Hoss on the site there. We met up with him just a few minutes ago, and we're standing in his garage in his shop right now talking bikes, and this is sort of what we're viewing. Tippy's is standing in front of Dale's V-Rod, but over here is, and I'm going to let Hoss take it from there. Go ahead, Hoss.
Well, it's a 67 BSA Thunderbolt that I bought new in 1967. Shortly after that, I went into the motorcycle business. I ended up selling it and fixing it and selling it to others, and I've owned it 5 times. But finally, in the late 80s, I said, you know what? This thing is still original, and nobody's pounded it. So I'm going to buy it and keep it. It's won numerous originality trophies at shows.
Yeah.
She still runs like a watch. She'll get out and run the ton.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's what year?
67.
It's a 67, and what model, Dale?
Well, it's a 650 Thunderbolt, they call it. It's a
gotcha.
single carb version.
Gotcha.
They made 2 hotter ones called the Lightning with twin carbs. Then they made a Spitfire that was cammed up. But this one has Spitfire cams in.
Gotcha.
You can get enough breath through that single carb to go faster than you need to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
It's kind of fun. They take a lot of hands-on to make them keep running.
Yeah.
You know, you don't take off on a 4,000-mile trip with a British bike without parts.
Yeah.
But it's fun just to have it and go out and let people realize what bikes were like 45, 50 years ago.
You bought it brand new.
I bought it brand new, yeah.
And from a dealer here in this area?
Well, I worked for the dealer. He has a Yamaha shop, and he also had BSA franchise.
Gotcha.
That's where I bought my first bigger bike, I guess you'd call it. I bought a 66 YDS3C Big Bear Scrambler Yamaha. They, of course, were all 2-strokes. We called them BBs running down a coal chute. That's what they sounded like. But I fell in love with this Beezer because nobody was buying it because of that single carb, and I said, well, we can play with that. That's going to work okay. So we did, you know. And this bike went to Sturgis about 3 times.
Yeah.
In fact, one time, to add to the story, running along with a shovel head, and we pulled into Wall, South Dakota. We'd been running about 80, which you shouldn't do on old Highway 14. Hotter than heck out, 100 degrees plus on the prairie. I noticed the Beezer every once in a while would kind of bind up a little bit. And I said, yeah, this old girl can't be locking. Anyway, we pull in front of Wall Drug, and that poor shovel head, oil was coming out of every orifice and gasket on it.
Yeah, that's a true story.
And I said, I wonder how the Beezer's doing, because it acted like it was binding up. I reached down and I touched the oil cap on the, because these things are a dry sump engine. They got an external oil tank. I touched the little chrome cap on here, burned my damn fingers. And it had, at that time, you didn't have terribly exotic oils, but I had 50-weight DA Speed Sport in it, and it absolutely turned it to kerosene. So when I got back from that trip, I made an oil cooler, which is still on the bike. It's actually the oil cooler there was all kinds of little goofy things you could buy from cars. But I went to a junkyard and I found this thing. It was actually it was wrapped in a coil. And it was made for Packard cars. They had fed water through it for a separate defroster deal. I said, you know what? I sit there and looked at that for a while. I could open that coil up, mount it to the frame, and it would look like it's supposed to be there. And this bike's never gotten hot since. I don't have a fancy thermal couple on it or nothing to it. It feeds oil to it all the time. But this old Beezer, you can just hammer on it, and it never gets hot anymore.
We're talking back in the days when bikers were gearheads. If you weren't a gearhead, you weren't a biker, because what you're explaining about what kind of time frame era years like
69, 70.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that made the difference between getting home on your bike.
Made it reliable.
Or throwing it in the back of an old pickup truck and dragging it home.
Pieces, probably.
Tremendous. So So it went from your hands to somebody else's hands about when?
First time it traded hands out of me was in '71. I opened my own cycle shop, and I needed cash, and I also needed a lathe, and because we were fabricating some trailer axles and stuff just to fill in money.
Right.
So I traded it to an engineering guy up at the college that had a lathe. He wanted the bike, and I wanted his lathe. So we traded. And then he had the bike for a while. And when I sold my cycle shop, I sold the lathe with it.
Gotcha.
But at that time, he had traded it back to me for a Kawasaki. And then I turned around and sold it to a farmer. I hardly ever rode it. It got parked in a corn shed for years. He put about 1,000 miles on it in 10 years. Then I got it back again because he sold it back to me. He didn't want it anymore. So I sold it to a college student that, unfortunately, the young man didn't understand how you could run this thing. He was driving it to college every day. So he starts it up at one 10-degree day with 50-weight DA Speed Sport in it. Obviously, it didn't flow very well for oil. It puked the crankshaft. So we pulled the motor apart, laid it on its head, and that's the last time it was in anybody else's hands.
Gotcha. Tremendous.
But I added, these are old Bates bags. That used to be a company that sold a lot of accessories. I slapped Bates bags in this thing. I put a Bates windshield. A story that maybe nobody will believe. My wife rode with me all the time when we were younger. I was working at the university, and I was in charge of making things work for experiments. And this carrier that's on this bike, I fabricated a plate with a ball hitch on, and I made a trailer.
Okay.
Of course, back in the day, you couldn't buy light stuff.
Yeah, right.
So I made a little trailer, welded together a scrap iron frame and plywood sides. And I tried to get the hitch low, but there's nothing to bolt onto this English bike unless you go way up to the motor. Right. So I said, well, we'll try this. Unbelievable. I took a take off of this thing with I and my wife on it. I'm pretty good going down, at that time it was brand new Interstate 29. But I like going on little roads and little towns. Every time I'd take off, the beezer would wiggle because the trailer was hooked so high. But once you got up to about 30, you were okay. I wore out a set of cowboy boots on the soles before I got to Worthington, Minnesota. Found a shoe shop that put me heavy-duty soles instead of leather, and I made it all the way through Wisconsin and so on. The scariest part was coming back home, come through Minneapolis at rush hour. These things couldn't stop the bike itself.
I always said they sped up. They didn't.
Well, what I kept doing, the adjuster, I'd slam the brakes on, and it would fade to nothing. So I'd spin the brake thing out because it was fading so bad. We made it through Minneapolis. I had the adjuster so far out there wasn't nothing left. But we made it home safely.
Fantastic. I am asked zillions and zillions of times over, what does Sturgis mean to me? What does Sturgis? Now, I'm not talking about the town of Sturgis. I'm talking about the Sturgis Rally, okay? What does Sturgis mean to me? What this guy meeting Haas and being here standing in his garage in Brookings, South Dakota on Highway 14, up here in the middle of nowhere, actually miles from the rally yet. Probably not by the way the crow flies, but the way that we fly in these back roads and stuff. We're talking miles and miles and miles. This is the best, bar none. This is what the Sturgis Rally means to me. Dale, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Tippy, we thank him, don't we?
Yes.
We thank him for your hospitality and for letting us come up and 15 posts. The guy's been out there just reading and watching Venture Rider, and I know that he's met a number of the people from. Yeah, I have. Mainly going to Pork and the Pines. I like going to the backcountry, so I ride the Adventure Yeah.
up through northern Minnesota. Usually every year I try and go through a plant.
Yeah.
I used to be an Artie Cat dealer.
Oh,
I went through
outstanding.
Artie Cat's plant on
Yeah.
one of the trips, and then I
Yeah.
go to Pork in the Pines and visit with everybody, and
Yeah.
I went through Polaris, and
Yeah.
went through Longboat, all those things I was
Yeah.
affiliated with at one time or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This year I'm going to Bobcat in Gwinner, North Dakota.
Okay.
It's the middle of nowhere where Bobcat was invented by a farmer.
Oh wow! How about that?
So I'm gonna-
How about that?
I used to use Bobcats when I built houses, so I got to go see what the history of it is.
You've been to you started to tell me earlier. So you've been to Pork in the Pines.
Yeah.
Galena.
I went to Galena to see the banner.
Oh, sure enough.
I bought it.
Oh, look at this! Look.
There was a couple guys trying to outbid me on it. They didn't.
Look.
Yeah.
Mark Carl is on there. I'm going to try to zoom this thing so see if you guys can recognize your names on here. See if you can find your name on here, you old-time cross-country venture rider touring types.
They had that as a fundraiser. Somebody must have made the banner that puts the Galena dental. And then they had everybody sign it. And then they sold it on an auction type thing to give funds to what venture rider gets funds for.
Yeah. Beautiful.
There was one guy that was a little upset that my head kept bobbing. And I said, you know, I'm only going to be able to experience this once. And he apparently didn't know how deep my pockets were. He would bid $5, I'd bid $25.
Oh, why waste time?
That's right. I wanted to get this over with.
Well, that looks really good too with the with the '87 there in the background. Ain't that pretty?
Recently, I had a guy make up that touring crotch rocket. That was commented in my motorcycle magazine back in the 80s.
Oh, look at this sharp guy. Might as well get this in here too, Dale. How many miles on this one?
I think it's got 14,000 miles on now.
Wow.
I bought it with 4,000.
Wow.
And,
wow.
But I got too many bikes to ride, so I don't get many miles on it.
Wow. Wow. Boy, she is a beauty.
But it had to be prima donna to get it back. You know, it sat for so long. But redo the carburetors, you know, and I've done some, you know, a lot of the stuff I found out. I never worked on these bikes.
Yeah.
So I found out my information by going on Venture Riders, and all I do is study and see what people say. And
thanks, Don.
I got a lot of tips from I wish I could. I'm not very good with names, but it's a gentleman that's got kind of a reworked Tweety. He calls his bike.
Oh, Dingy.
Yeah, Dingy.
That Dingy. Yeah.
What a neat guy to learn some background from. How to fix things and so on. Plus many others. You know, but you know, I went through this last year and put all stainless steel lines on it because the thing when you hit the brakes is like hitting a rubber band.
Right.
But it's fun to go hit the road and put the cruise on 50 and just watch the countryside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, set the cruise at 50 and hit the countryside, and you literally could run. I'll bet you these things would do 1,000,000 miles at. I'm not exaggerating. Do you agree, Dale?
Yeah, I would.
I mean, at 50 miles an hour, if you just did a consistent 50 miles an hour, and stayed right there and didn't beat the daylights out of it like Tippy and I do. But no, seriously, if you took care of it, I'll bet you anything you could see 1,000,000 miles out of something like that. I
only buy bikes I like, and some people think that's strange, but you know, I really like this bike. You know, It's got. I don't like those wide ones. I don't like wings that are too wide. I feel like I'm riding a drum, and that's everybody's personality on what they like.
Right.
I had that guy in Texas, you know, lower the seat. What do they call him?
Yep.
He redid the seats.
Gotcha.
Gives me a little bit more comfort level. Sent me back a couple inches.
Gotcha.
I'm too tall to sit on it just right, so it does good. It's going to Sturgis in 2 days.
Outstanding. To the Blue Line Diner. He's going to ride the Pie Butt 26.2.
I've ridden the Sturgis probably 30 times, so this year it's going on a trailer along with the V-Rod.
Oh, he's a double dipper.
Well, you got to have one bike for one culture and another bike for another culture. Except the Harley culture doesn't really like the V-Rod, but I do.
Yeah. Now, do you know BJ66?
Not sure. He's from Stratford, South Dakota, that guy?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think he is from Stratford.
Yeah.
Apologize if I'm wrong, Bernie.
I know where Stratford is, but I've never met him. No.
Gotcha.
Well, we'll meet him.
Yeah, we're going to meet him. We're going to meet him.
Yeah.
We're going to meet. Have you ever met Venture Fire?
I'm not sure. No, I don't think
we met him last year at the Dolls in Oregon at Venture West.
Okay.
And just a super nice guy. And I think, let me think if I could think of some others that are coming. Well, Mike.
Okay.
He's the one that started that thread that we've been kind of joking around and working, and the pie butts on. And I think the kid is on there. Oh my gosh. There's can you think of any of the other ones that are on there? There's a bunch of them. Can you think of any more on there? Man, I apologize, you guys. My mind just went blank. Pegasus?
Yeah.
I think Pegasus said that he's coming. He's from like Utah or something. But anyway, there's a bunch of them. We're going to be there.
Somebody coming from Texas, I think.
Yeah, there's somebody coming out of Texas.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But yeah. What? No, not Baker John. No. But anyway, we're looking forward to meeting all you guys, and you're gonna love Hoss. Call him Hoss. You're gonna find out that I think he really is Dan Blacker's brother. I really do. Said he's got cowboy boots.
That's all I got. That's my other affliction. I get custom-made cowboy boots. I only got about a dozen pair.
All right, this thing is going to be a really long one because we're already at like 15 minutes on here. It's going to be a long YouTube haul. But I want you to go just real quickly, if you could. Galena, Porcupine, any other rallies or anything that you've been to?
Not relating to Yamaha.
Not to VentureRider.org.
No.
Nothing. Okay. All right. So, anyway, Don, thanks for the site. We really appreciate that.
You bet. That's great. The best site I've ever been on for any motorcycles I'm associated with. You know.
Yeah. And I appreciate it too. Tippy and I do too. Because you know what? It's given us this opportunity to stop in here and meet Dale, and this is the name of the game. What it's all about. So, all right, YouTube, here we come.